Yesterday, by the way,
What's
Brian
up?
Kelly came on my show. You'll find oftentimes the best coaches come on. They want to
ham it up with you.
They want to hear my thoughts on the sport and my collective wisdom. But but I did ask Brian.
Did Brian Kelly want to hear about how you can't win at Notre Dame? It's cold. It's in the middle of the country. Nobody wants to live there. You got to go to the coast.
I did say this though. Offensive linemen go there and get paid in the NFL. It's
yes,
become
they
an
do.
And the other thing is, I asked him if it's their. I asked him if it was the best team he ever had, and I don't think it's the best quarterback, but he did say it was the best team they had, and I've got to tell you something. Winning 10 and 11 games at Notre Dame, and he's doing it every year now. I'd put him coach of the year. I think he is the best coach they've had since Lou Holtz, and I don't even think it's close.
Yeah,
I think he's a great coach.
I think he's also a great coach. He's built a really good program, and this year, I would agree with him. I think this is his best team since he's been at Notre Dame, and I think it is that way not because of the flashiness of the program. It's actually the exact opposite. It's what they are at the line of scrimmage is finally now equal to, or a team that can go out there and play with the big boy, Clemson, and beat them up, right? So I went back because, listen, you can get sucked into like meta numbers, if you will, or like macro numbers, and like this is what they were this year and that year. And so people say like, boy, they were great defensively in 2012 when they went to the national championship and got blown out by Alabama. But when you look at when they actually faced somebody that year, Alabama, they gave up over 260 yards rushing.
Right.
Okay, got blown out at the line of scrimmage. In fact, only ran the ball for a little over 30 yards in that national championship game. So the line of scrimmage was the biggest mismatch on the field, right? And Alabama just steamrolled them. Then you go to the playoff game 2 years ago against Clemson. Yeah. Virtually the same thing happened. Notre Dame did not run the ball for 100 yards and gave up well over 200 yards of rushing. They got steamrolled at the line of scrimmage, and a lot of that was style of game, and they were down and had to throw the football, and I understand that. But now you go to this year. Guess what happened when Clemson rolls into town? It was the exact opposite. Clemson runs the ball for only about 30 yards, and Notre Dame's the one rushing the football for over 200 yards.
You know, a lot of times, Joel, when you watch a game, it's not even the score. You can tell.
You can feel it.
You can watch Notre Dame. I watched them twice against Georgia, and I watched them against Clemson. Well, they can go. They got NFL guys.
Yeah.
My NFL guys up in my O-line are as good as your NFL. Notre Dame passes the physical eye test.
Yes.
Big, even the receivers. Big, fast, physical. Notre Dame now has the most talent they have had in 20 years.
And they're long. I just like their whole mindset. I think that they have a really, really good coaching staff. And listen, the game plan against Clemson was marvelous. You can say all you want about Uyunglele threw the ball for 400 yards. Yeah, that was the point. The point was Travis Etienne, the proven commodity, was not going to beat Notre Dame. And guess what he did? Nothing. In that game. He virtually did nothing in that game. And so they put it on the shoulders of the true freshman. Clemson sitting there with 3 defensive players out of the front 7. They beat them up with the run game. It was a great game plan, and they won the game accordingly.
So, listen, a couple years ago, that was last year. Nothing, and I got nothing against Ohio at all. Don't think they have the best weather in the country, but whatever. Respect the Buckeyes greatly. But last year it was like, there's the best Big Ten team ever. I bet a small fortune on Clemson, and today have benefited greatly from it.
Well, you were very lucky that Dobbins hurt his ankle, and the SEC officials threw Sean Wade out of the game.
Lucky.
You were.
Okay.
You were. The breaks in that game were incredible.
Oh, God.
The Buckeyes last year were a phenomenal football team. Yeah. We were robbed, college football fans, of seeing Ohio State play LSU. That was the real championship game. All due respect to Clemson. You guys got very lucky in that game.
Okay.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah,
Dabo, you know it's true. Look yourself in the mirror, and you understand what Colin will not face, which is that Clemson was incredibly lucky in that game.
Yeah, it's funny. They always seem to be really lucky against the Buckeyes. Anywho, so I'm hearing it again. Oh, this Ohio State team. And I'm like...
You actually will not hear that from me.
I look at them, I watch them, I'm like, they're really good. They're Ohio State. They are. I don't think they're Notre Dame, and I know they're not Alabama.
Remains to be seen about, comparing them to the other teams. Let's just compare them to last year's Ohio State team.
They're not nearly as good.
They are not as good as last year's Ohio State team. They are better at quarterback and wide receiver.
Yes.
And offensive line is excellent. Justin Fields, his maturation through the last couple of years has been outstanding.
He's terrific.
He's a great player, right? And he'll get selected accordingly, maybe, probably second in the draft this spring. He's phenomenal.
They are not beating Alabama.
Maybe, maybe not. I mean, we'll see when that, who knows what the health of the teams look like at that point. I will tell you this, though. J.K. Dobbins is a huge loss for them. He was a 2,000-yard rusher, and he was a home run hitter at running back. So they're having to try to create things from a run game perspective. They're almost averaging a yard less per carry this year than they were last year. Okay, so that's a big deal. And then defensively, I'm sorry, they've got great players on defense this year. Really, I mean, excellent players that'll get selected in the draft. You do not play as potent of defense one year as opposed to the other when you have 3 top 16 picks selected off that defense, 2 of them in the top 5. They're just not anywhere close. In fact, they're averaging almost a yard and a half per play worse this year than last year.
Yeah.
So when you look at those metrics, Ohio State's not quite as dominant as they were a year ago. And listen, they were a dominant team. They were excellent last year. But this year, they're going to have to piece it together, and there's going to be more pressure on Fields to be superhuman at times.
And he can be.
And he certainly can.
He's
cover
their
up some of those things.
best quarterback by a mile in Ohio State history. He's great.
Probably.
He's great.
I think that he's excellent. But I will tell you that they are in for a fist fight this week against Indiana. People might be like, what do you mean, Indiana? They're in for a fist fight against Indiana. Indiana is
got NFL players.
It's gotten better and better and better. Their quarterback is excellent. Their defense is salty. They can run. They tackle well in space. If they take away the run game, which likely they're going to have a great chance to do because they're not as good, Ohio State at running back, then Fields is going to be.
You're doing that
game.
Be
a little bit in the pressure cooker this weekend.
Yeah,
We are.
It's actually a really good game. Indiana, if you watch Indiana, they got like NFL talent. They got like real receivers and backs and real players.
And the defense has been absolutely excellent. Their quarterback, Michael Penix, by the way, is playing outstanding. Last week, I did this whole breakdown of how he played on third down against Michigan State. Michigan State threw the kitchen sink at him on third down. Different coverages, different blitzes. Boom. He just on time, on target with the ball, knew what he was doing. Really smart player. I can't wait to see him play against Ohio State.
All right, let me look at your top 10 right here.
What is this, like some sort of evaluation?
So Alabama's one.
Wow, look at that look. Look
right,
at
Ohio
that
State, Notre Dame. I like that you have Notre Dame. You've always been very negative toward them. I like
That's
to see
false. That's
Clemson
false.
4.
Colin's
A&M's
lying to you. Fact check false.
Wisconsin.
I've defended Notre Dame.
Indiana's not 8, but whatever. Cincinnati.
Oh, okay.
Okay, BYU 10. BYU's got a great quarterback. Okay, so let's get to this. I noticed something this week. I do a lot of homework for this show.
Okay.
I'm very committed to excellence. And so I went to one of those recruiting boards, and I want you to explain this to me. I went to Texas.
Yes.
And
I
I
believe they're the 6th best roster in the country right now.
Okay, whatevs. I went and looked at their recruiting. Joel, they're getting smoked in Texas. What the hell's going on? The Oklahoma, A&M, I could not believe how few elite Texas players the Longhorns had. God, if I grew up in Texas, that'd be the first place I'd want to go.
It's a problem.
What is going on?
It's a problem because this certainly wasn't the case. When Mac was winning a lot of games, they would just open up the back door, and every top recruit in Texas would go to Texas. They've still gotten good recruiting classes, but they have lost that luster in the state. And to be honest with you, it's not just Oklahoma and Texas A&M. LSU has been getting in there. Alabama has been getting in there. Ohio State has been getting in there.
What is it?
I don't know.
Herman's
Tom Herman, by the way, came out this week and he said it's hurting us in recruiting that there are rumors about Urban Meyer at Texas. And I'm like, hold on. Like, one, you don't address that, right? Like, I know Tom, if you're listening to this, don't address that, right? Just go out there and win games, keep your job, and then you'll be fine. But I don't quite understand. I know that Texas A&M has really hit the recruiting trail hard.
And Jimbo Fisher's a great recruiter.
And Lincoln Riley is an excellent recruiter. He is a really good recruiter.
Here's all I know. And this is the knock with USC and Clay Helton. When you're Texas and Texas or USC in California, you have to get the best back, 2 best receivers, best quarterback. It's understood. The history,
but
the
neither
heritage.
of them are doing that.
That's what I'm saying. So
last year in California alone, USC only got one of the top 25 players in the state.
It's like,
can't do
duh.
that. Right.
Like,
you can't
and
do
that's
that.
what I'm saying. I went and looked at the Texas recruiting. I'm like, whoa, this is a USC thing in Texas.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's nothing against Tom Herman, but that's not acceptable.
And that's the first way to start losing your administration, because the administration will look at that and be like, hold on, like, listen, we know the lifeblood of every program is recruiting, in particular when you're at a place that is supposed to be a blue chip, get a top 5 class based on its vicinity, its geographic location.
Okay, here's another thing, is when you have a good resume, I'll give you an off year. It's COVID. Franklin's losing PJ Fleck. I'm not going to define you based on a year in which we can't go to restaurants. Like, you can't do anything. Harbaugh's coached 12 full years in college, 4 in the NFL, and he's got 2 losing seasons and a 500 season. And the losing seasons were at Stanford when he took over for a mess.
Yep.
Am I supposed to believe in a year that James Franklin and PJ Fleck have unraveled? Am I supposed to think now he can't coach? Like, are we overdoing?
Listen, I understand where you're going with this, but remember now, the optics have a lot to do with this as well, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, they lost 2 nail biters, right? Like, that's not the case. And it really, when you struggle at what you're supposed to be strong at,
yeah, that hurts.
That hurts a lot. And when you can't run the football, you can't develop a quarterback, and now all of a sudden the defense is falling apart and they can't stop the passing game. I think that was their biggest deficit at home at halftime since the Big House was built. So when you're doing things that not even Rich Rod was doing in terms of futility,
but that's
opening some eyeballs.
But it's a COVID year.
Yeah, but I understand. But again, can COVID make up for that entire gap? Like, it does not look good right now. Apparently, they've opened up their quarterback position again. It's hard. I can't defend this season. This has been a massive disappointment set up by the massive disappointment of Minnesota. Minnesota has been a massive disappointment, and they set everybody up for failure, including me. I thought that Minnesota was really good.
Well,
I was like, oh, Michigan is back.
No,
they're good.
I'm
like an idiot.
I'm giving a lot of people a pass for COVID. I just am. I'm giving companies.
This one just feels different, though, because, again, like, they're not losing nail biters. You have to admit that, right? Like, and they're not doing things that Jim Harbaugh teams should be able to do.
That's a fair criticism. I guess I am glass half full guy.
Oh, is that case? You weren't with Drew Lock. You don't like him dancing.
Speaking of Drew Lock,
in honor of Drew Lock, I just threw down some dance moves for
footage of Joel Klatt last weekend in the booth.
I'm not going to listen. I will not answer to Colin's judgment of dancing. This will be Joy only in her analysis, please.
What is going on here?
Okay, Joel.
Yes.
I am so uncomfortable. You look like if Aquaman had something stuck in his suit. There's something going on here.
No. I mean, why can't he dance?
That Gus Johnson is just egging you on, so that he's just enabling
Gus
you.
is loving it. I love Gus's hoodie, by the way.
This is amazing. Guys, who has more fun than Gus and I?
Nobody.
Oh, come on. Look at that. That's a good move.
You got to tell Gus I said hello, by the way.
Gus is just encouraging your bad behavior there.
That's not bad behavior. That's not bad behavior.
Joy, you're a decent dancer.
Thank you very much, Joy. I appreciate
that.
You know
what's funny? I had a friend once say to me, I was a way better dancer than he thought I would be.
I totally disagree. No one listening right now believes that you are a decent dancer.
Well, Drew Lock let us all down.
Oh,
all he had to do was beat Atlanta, and we would have seen Colin dance on there.
Done with. You have to win games in order to dance.
Why don't you win a couple, Cub Scout, before you become, Thriller?
So can I dance?
You've had a lot of success in your life. You get that dance. I don't love it. I discourage it. But
you discourage it.
You're a preferred walk-on who set Colorado quarterback records. You have earned the right to a dance.
I might dance on this table right now.
Yeah, slow down there, Chief. All right, Joel Klatt, good stuff. Rick Bucher, too.
Watch out, Tennessee. Tennessee this week.
Tennessee what?
Just watch out for Tennessee. They're catching 11.
I don't trust them ever.
I don't trust
the
Vols
totally
either.
dysfunctional.
Nor their fan base.
Yeah, they're dysfunctional.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about. Vol Twitter always coming after me. How do you like me now this year? How do you like me now?
All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.